Hello and welcome to EBAday 2021. I'm Hannah Wallace, and calling into our virtual studio now is Daragh Kirby, Head of Sales and Marketing at Intercope. So Daragh, thank you very much for calling in today.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Good to have you on. So yes, a big topic at this year's EBAday is ISO20022 Migration, which is indeed the subject of our interview today. So what I'd like to do is start off by setting the scene, and maybe you could highlight where we're up to with ISO today and also a bit about how far we've come. Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, as probably most people will know, ISO20022 has been around since 2004. Its primary goal really was to provide richer data so that we could provide better payments and better financial transactions within our industry. I think particularly in the Eurozone, the real one that sort of a key milestone date was 2008 when SEPA credit transfers and SEPA direct debits went live. These were new schemes for transferring across the Eurozone for low value payments and were very, very successful. A great onboarding of ISO 20022 for banks. And a great start. And actually, one of the things it's moved on into SEPA Instant now. So not only just the ISO scheme from a data point of view, but also the business model has even changed in that time. So the idea that you can make instant payments, real time across the Eurozone. And we've seen, I guess, another cornerstone or ideal of 2002 as a result of that, or of ISO 20022, was the idea of better competition and the idea of using, any network that you like. And we've seen that with SEPA Instant as well, the idea that you can use, different clearing and settlement mechanisms, whether it's TIPS or RT1, and you have the option of using different networks, whether it be, SWIFT as before, or the idea that you can also use SIA and EBIX now. So it's been a very good start to ISO in Europe, but I guess the tempo has increased quite a bit in the last year or so as the larger market infrastructures and schemes and regulators have set out their stall and their plans for ISO over the next number of years. And the goal really there has been, the reason for that, I think the increase in tempo recently has been the increase in digital transactions, digital payments. And so, the need for having clear and secure information being passed within payments has become ever more important. And the existing payments infrastructures, to be resilient, reliable, and provide secure information, needed an update to be able to adapt to that. So we're at a real key junction right now. And as we head into 2022 next year, the Bank of England, EBA, lots of migration, SWIFT themselves across border. So we've had ISO for a while, but we're at a real key junction as we move into larger adoption.
Sure, and we'll be looking ahead at how it's going to develop further down the line. But just to summarise that, it's flexible, that's more responsive to changes in the economy, emerging technologies and innovation, which in turn, like you say, contributes to competition. So taking all of that into account, could you guide us through the sort of innovation you're seeing as a result of this ISO 20022 richer data? What about that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I suppose that the new schemes with SEPA was probably hard to see that or realize that as much. It was more really about, a new scheme adopting a new standard and being able to have payments across a greater reachability. I suppose now in the short term, where we are currently, I guess we're about to go into this coexistence phase. So it's a lot of keeping up, but banks can already see that they can provide, better information to their corporates, being able to attach, for example, things like QR codes with beneficiary information into invoices, etc., will allow, corporates to do more automated reconciliation. So less processing time and fewer errors as a result. I think in the medium term, once we go live, particularly with these larger schemes we just talked about, I think, this richer data will allow, there'll be less rechecking, less exceptions in investigations, and there'll be greater efficiency around the whole operational side of the bank and of particularly of the consumers and corporates as their customers. So greater efficiency, more automation, etc. But I think the longer term innovation, and we're starting to see a little bit more about that at the moment, sort of growth in it or interest in it, I guess, is this richer data, as you say, Hannah. What can be done with this? More proactive in monitoring. The realization that financial crimes can be picked up better, and providing richer and better data back to the consumer. And indeed, the bank themselves can look to offer better products as a result of knowing a lot more about the end-to-end, the insights and the analytics from the end-to-end processing of payments. I think that's really exciting from a bank point of view. And then also we have, I guess, as we open out fintechs, APIs, etc., and the whole world of that, the idea that, we will optimize the payments lifecycle a little bit better by having a more open standard that can be utilized by all.
Right, so that's a pretty positive view, but I don't think it'd be right talking about ISO 20022 without talking about some of the challenges as well. So what are some of the concerns as we move towards large migrations happening in 2022, and what do you envisage for the future given this increased openness and greater competition? What about that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, 2022 is a key date. The tempo has been up quite a bit over the last couple of years. The stall has been set out as to, when these larger migrations are going to happen. So at the moment, we're in a transition phase. So, there is quite a lot of worry about, how is this all going to look like once we go live, and around the phases of going live as well. We conducted Intercope. We had a user community meeting last year with a number of our banks and a number of industry analysts. And the largest thing that came out of that was ISO 20022, will it be a different standard for, different market infrastructures and for SWIFT themselves? One of the goals has always been about global interoperability, but, is that going to be possible? Is there going to be better alignment? And to ensure that market practices, et cetera, and changes will all be brought into line. And then that will also obviously foster greater competition and things as we go forward. But right now, I think the industry is a little bit like, we're on board with this. We're being compliant as we can, but we need to ensure that the regulators and the market infrastructures also, maintain this idea of global interoperability, and that we don't end up with multiple versions of this standard.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It sounds like you're having some important discussions there as well. So I'd like to sort of summarize our conversation then and end on looking at some of the top technology trends you're seeing in the payment space today, and what do you think we can expect going forward?
Yeah, I think certainly the cloud is playing a bigger role now. I mean, we're all bowled over with statistics on the cloud in our daily lives, and new offerings in the cloud. But I think the banks up until now have really, the cloud has been something, of course, they've invested hugely in, but they're now looking at it more, not just for their core services, and certainly payments processing being a core service. So looking to see, how can we not just move our technology into the cloud from a data center point of view and have the ownership of that controlled by a cloud provider, but also how can we sort of optimize what it is we do? How can we offer a better service? And as part of that, then the whole idea of open banking and APIs, I think that plays a clear another role related to that as well, that the whole world of fintechs offering better services, and the idea that the bank can be more optimized in what they do. So I think the cloud is really key, but also, as we touched upon with ISO 20022, it's the data itself and the bank owning the data itself. I think that's a really key thing we're seeing at the moment as well. It's all well and good with these large transformations and maybe even outsourcing them or allowing the schemes to do them themselves. But I think the bank needs to control their data. So what we see at the moment is, having this richer data, controlling it via payments, message warehouses, etc., optimizing to move it into the cloud, and then looking at to collaborate, etc., with the great fintechs that are out there by offering APIs, etc., so that we can optimize, I guess, the end-to-end and achieve the overall goal of ISO 20022.
So watch this space, and some good advice weaved in there as well. But Daragh, we'll leave it there for now, and looking forward to having you involved in EBAday this year, and hopefully we can catch up with Intercope further down the line. But for now, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hannah.